in the middle of some action.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't need to see the person wake up, get out of bed, brush their teeth, get in their car, and then get in the car accident if we can just see them drive and yawn once and then get into a car accident. We've established everything that we could have established in much less time.
One of my favorite ways to start a new adventure is, everybody ready? Okay, roll initiative.
A new adventure? Like a new campaign?
Yeah,
Could start with an initiative? Wow.
I've done that more than once.
Well, there's a couple of points for and against it in chat.
Mm-hmm.
Bard Wannabe actually has a point that I agree with. He doesn't like when, in Pathfinder Society, they give a mission briefing as a flashback.
Oh.
And it's true. There's been a couple of those, and I think those are more of early season stuff where they didn't quite have their format yet. So it's like, you're on a boat, thinking back on talking to that venture captain about this, and then you actually play out that flashback scene a little bit, and then you're like, and you went shopping for this, but now you're on the boat where you can't go shopping anymore, but you can basically say you went shopping anytime. That's not really in media res because you are stopping the action to look back on the scene that you should have started with. So yes, it's kind of formulaic, but like I was saying about Reign of Fire, there are good ways to make a formulaic thing stand out from other things that share that same format. Mm-hmm. And Pathfinder Society, I think it is pretty necessary that the first scene always be the meet with the person that's giving you the adventure, the quest giver. Mm-hmm. But what I like is that sometimes you're meeting at a adventure lodge, sometimes you're out in the middle of nowhere, you're already at a country that you are going to be adventuring on because you got a missive sending you to meet this other adventure giver, and instead of starting with the missive, they start with the venture, the quest giver.
Mm-hmm.
How does it work when you start an adventure or a campaign with a roll for initiative, Parham?
Well, first it gets everybody's attention right away.
Sure.
Then I usually have a battle mat ready, pre-drawn.
Mm-hmm.
I slap it down on the table. I put the PCs in the middle of it, and I surround them with critters. And then I say, this is the situation you've got yourself in, and then give them as little detail as possible until the combat's over, and then explain to them how they got here, and let them adjust that as necessary for their characters, and then go on with it. Because at that point, they're already working together. They have a reason to trust each other. They've already know what tactics and roles everybody plays. And then all of a sudden, it's very imperative, because if I started with combat, that means there's something going on that they need to address immediately.
Agnar Vangloria says, it seems like it would have the benefit of getting directly to the action, but his worry, or her worry, sorry, Agnar, worry about the player's attachment to the campaign or that initial feeling out the character role-playing. Yes and no, because a lot of the times I find a campaign does start with knowing what you want your character to be, but not really knowing how to portray that,
Mm-hmm.
but knowing what you want your character to be mechanically, and yes, knowing how to portray that. Plus, if you plan on having like a cocky character or whatever, and you blow it in that first encounter, then anytime you're like, man, I am the best person at swords, someone else in the party can also play on your ego and be like, yeah, you really showed how great you were with swords in that one encounter. Remember that one that started the campaign? They would use like in character.
I had a
terms.
problem with that with one of our big tough Inquisitor in Wrath of the Righteous in the first sessions before they were all mythiced out, got taken out by rats, not dire rats. So in the crew of demigods, every time he's trying to strut his "I'm all powerful God," one of the PCs would always cut him down. Yeah, as long as there's not a rat in the room.
Marcus Urit says he guesses arguably everything starts in media res. It's just that some res are boring. We're all at a tavern. It's true, but you know what? If you start in a tavern, that's more interesting than you show up at the city gates and you have to ask directions for the tavern, and there's no drama, there's no direction. It's just eventually, yes, they will get to the tavern. If the tavern is where the action starts, or basically wherever the first decision a PC has to be start it there. Summarize, and then be like, and now here's a decision you have to make. Go.
I guess if we really wanted to take that to the extreme, we could start things with and suddenly everything is cold and bright and scary, and some man slaps your backside while hanging you upside down.
Mm. Then several years pass.
We will start this campaign from the beginning. I guess we could go. And then Asmodeus helped create the universe by separating. I mean, if we're going to believe the Book of the Damned.
Oh, Imperiosaur says that Serpent Skull starts with an initiative roll. That's cool. Neither of us have played that, and I don't believe you've even read it, right? Because I know I haven't. So that's news to us. So it's good to know that even the adventure paths sometimes use this technique we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. It's a fun one.
Marcus, you were suggesting that we start with the Big Bang. But I think we're ready to move on to the questions that we received ahead of time.
And while we're answering these questions, if you got questions, ask them. If you got any questions about the rules of the game that are quick to answer, ask them. If you want something that requires a lot of super research, it's best to mail those in so we have time to do that research.
Sure, yeah. If you want to know what the 20th level telekineticist ability is, we haven't got that far with the kineticist yet, so give us time.
Yep.
Like
and it might be time to just ping Alex on Facebook.
Yes. Channon Vikaeta?
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Channon. You know, one of the things that I should also do is always ask for a phonetic pronunciation. But he asked via No Directions Facebook page, every day that passes, he's more proud of what we've done with the game ourselves and less compelled by things invented by TSR or Wizards of the Coast. But there are some elements of the game that would be very difficult to let go. That said, Galarian is a very different place now than it was when we started, and the mix of monsters in Bestiary would have to be different as a result, since the Bestiary seems to support our game world as much as anything else. This is a quote from James Jacobs that he starts his question with. He says, what are the remaining OGL monsters that are still key to Galarian? What PFSRD monsters would make up the new iconic Bestiary? And what monsters would be let go from the OGL? Thoughts?
They've already done a whole lot of this for us. There's not a lot more room to go. I think of the monsters that would still need from the OGL that they can't use that would very much benefit the game would be the abominations.
Abomination.
No.
Grey Render?
No. Aberrations. The aberrations that they can't use. Like the Beholder would be very helpful because they do a lot with aboleths. And also, of course, the Mind Flayer because, well, they do a lot with things that he would be very handy with, especially coming into the occult right now. That said, they have sort of changed what it means to be a Pathfinder monster to what it means to be something inspired by real-world mythology, legends, and cryptids. So I don't miss the Splacer Beast. I don't miss... they're not called Murlocs. What were they called? The fish Sahagwan. I don't miss Sahagwan.
We don't have Sahuagin? I didn't even realize that they were banned.
No, it's not Sahuagin. We got Sahuagin. The D&D deep ones. I don't care because I don't even remember their names anymore, but it was a big deal back when I first started playing. They're analogous deep ones. But now we just have deep ones.
Oh, Kuatoa.
Kuatoa, thank you. But now
Thank you, Jacob Blackman.
Thank you, Jacob Blackman. But now we just have deep ones. And since I think that's the way to go. Just go with the source. So I don't miss anything from the OGL.
I agree. Like at first, it really felt like, how are we going to have a fantasy role-playing game without beholders? Like that was a big loss for me. Same thing for Mind Flayers, but I really just think that not having these creatures that video games and a lot of adventures have been based around, separated it from our expectations of what a fantasy adventure and basically what separates Dungeons and Dragons from Pathfinder. Like that helped establish Pathfinder. The fact that they had to come up with some other things, that they got to put a little more emphasis on some creatures that were less emphasized or taken for granted, goblins basically. That is where Pathfinder got its stride. And I'm sure if it had access to those OGL monsters, it would just as well have found its stride because it's more about the talent than about the content. But still, I feel better about Galarian not having those monsters than I really would have expected to.
Well, just
now he says, "What PFS are?" Go ahead.
Well, just look at the Aboleth. Before Pathfinder made them these all-controlling Illuminati / Cthulhu demon of nightmares, they were basically like the weird tentacle whales that like clouds that we just kill in 2 hits because they're pathetic, crazy, weak monsters that nobody cares about. But now they're terrifying. If I tell my players there's an Aboleth involved, they're freaking crapping themselves.
Yeah, until they actually fight it, and once they've overcome the water thing, it's pretty easy to kill an Aboleth.
Which is why they make better ones now.
Yes, that's good. But that reflects to another part of his question, what PFSRD monster would make up the new iconic bestiary? That's definitely one of them. The Aboleth is a monster that became something way more significant. Demons overall, like the entire hierarchy of demon. Once they reached, I think about Bestiary 3, and they had a demon per CR, or maybe it was when they started doing the Hell books, which are called something.
Book of the Damned?
Book of the Damned.
I love that series.
So once they released the Book of the Damned books, and they had a demon per CR, that was it. There was like, demons are a significant part of Galarian's history, and Galarian, and like, for whatever reason, demons are much more important than most of the other outsiders to Galarian, and now here is a complete working, fully functional hierarchy that past games have never focused on making a functional hierarchy for them. Those would be iconic for like an iconic bestiary. And then otherwise, honestly, Classic Monsters Revisited is kind of the iconic bestiary to me, because it is the first time we really saw a lot of monsters that we were familiar with from other fantasy become Pathfinder versions of those monsters.
Also, I would say obviously Pathfinder goblins, but I would say things that have become iconic, like the Sandpoint Devil.
Sure. Sandpoint Devil's almost more fun as a Galarian cryptid, though, as like this thing people talk about, but we may have never actually encountered, might not be real.
That's how I ran it. I teased him for months and months and months, and then he shows up in a burning barn and freaks everybody out. And
I really liked.
And then nobody believed they killed him.
I liked that particular story from the Pathfinder Goblins comic. There was the second 6-issue miniseries was these 2 short stories per issue of Pathfinder Goblins, and one of them includes a Sandpoint Devil and a couple of goblins waiting for it, and it's just fun goblin nonsense. It's one of the better stories from that series, which were unfortunately hit and miss.
Okay. The next one is from Andrew Hoskins via the No Directions Facebook page. He asks, Ryan, do you, or any of the KD audience, have any advice for running Rise of the Runelords through Hero Lab? Essentially, I think it has potential to make the game run faster, but I don't want it getting in the way. Which aspects are worth spending time to use or get used to, and which aspects tend to slow down play? Any advice is appreciated. Thanks.
All right, so I've fully integrated Hero Lab into my game as a GM with Rise of the Runelords, and it's because of their Rise of the Runelords encounter library that I've been able to do this. It's incredibly useful, where you know what book you're starting at, so you open it, you start as whatever, a monster encounter, however you want to start it, and then you go into the encounter library, and you've got every encounter laid out in page order, basically. So as you're flipping through the book, even if you're jumping around timeline or whatever, it's laid out in the same order that is in the book. So you know that if it's like, here's encounter E3 and it's after E2, you just go, you'll find it in the exact same order. It's very intuitively laid out. You click on it, you load it. Takes a couple of seconds to load. So I've found that when I know where they're going in general in that session, then I will load them up early on, like before my players start getting there. I will just load up all of the encounters, and if it's something like they're fighting a whole bunch of goblins, I'll start nicknaming the goblins early on. So that's some of the only prep that I'll be doing, because Hero Lab's done everything else for me. Where it gets confusing is that when, let's say you've got 2 back-to-back encounters of 3 goblins, it'll be Goblin 1, 2, 3, Goblin 1, 2, 3. And so if you've loaded up all 6 of those goblins, you've got 2 Goblin 1s, 2 Goblin 2s, and 2 Goblin 3s. And that's where the nicknaming comes in. And it's hard to do on the fly. But if you do have a couple of minutes, you can just go to the right tab, give it a nickname, and apply it. Where does it... what things slow it down? It's not really slow it down, but one of the annoying things is that there's a great feature on Hero Lab where basically if you just hover over a feat or a spell, it will give you the rules text for it. That rules text will include a scroll bar on the side if it's particularly long. There is no way of scrolling that scroll bar. If you start scrolling down when you see a scroll bar, it'll just scroll down the main page, and suddenly your mouse will no longer be hovering over the feat or spell that you wanted more information on. So basically, if you are running an encounter and you come up with a spell or a feat you're not familiar with, you hover over it and you see a scroll bar, that's when you just tell the players, I need a minute because this is not giving me the information I will need. So then you have to find it from another source. And there is an app that I find incredibly useful. It's Masterwork Tools, and it has all. It's a free app. It has the entire SRD on here, and it is searchable. The search function sometimes comes. The results sometimes hit in a strange order, but overall, I find that this supplements any time that Hero Lab does not do everything that I need it to. Beyond that, I mean, it's got all of the immunities on there. So anytime that a bestiary will just be like, oh, he's got elemental immunities, and you haven't memorized elemental immunities, then you just click on their special tab, and it will list every individual immunity instead of just saying elemental immunities, and you have to figure out what that is. And otherwise, as soon as you load them, go right to the in-play tab, because that is where you're going to be doing all of your, where you're going to be running basically the entire encounter from.
Okay.
And again, I am going to recommend Hero Lab for any GM that's running an adventure path that they have supported.
All right, let's move on to the next question, which is Dax Thura via the NoDirectionPodcast.com forums. Woo! First forum question.
They're back.
Pathfinder Society goes to level 12, and the game itself supports up to level 20. Prior iterations of the game have went even higher. My experience tells me that it is the rarest games that go above level 12 in practice. What's the highest level you have played to?
And before we get to our answers, I want to say that I was surprised to see how many people agreed with Dax that the highest level game that they played went to level 12 max.
Wow, yeah, that's not my experience.
No, my experience is we play full campaigns, we play long campaigns. Usually around level 15 is when the end game starts, unless we're deliberately saying, like, this is the campaign that we want to run into epic levels. This is when we were playing 3.5. And so I guess the highest level that I ever played was epic plus 2 or 3 levels, so maybe level 22.
Let's see. Highest I ever played was, I actually got to play some really high-level Forgotten Realms stuff that started with Crypt of the Spider Queen, which is a really high-level adventure to begin with. Like, I started the character at 12 to give you an idea of how it scaled. I think I went to 28 as a wizard, so I was basically God at that point. But that was the exception, in which we were intentionally playing high level to begin with. But as far as starting level 1, I had a campaign go to 20 with one of the players go to 22. That was before I started locking everybody's XPs together, so some of the players weren't that high. That was before Pathfinder came out, so it was a 3.5 campaign. My Pathfinder campaigns have gone usually into 18-19s pretty regularly. And we abandoned Wrath of the Righteous, but that was after we were already like 13 plus 4, so like level 17 actually. If usually I don't stop a campaign until we're reaching level 16, 17, 18.
I think Carrion Crown ended, I want to say level 16. And right now we're in book 4, pretty much a quarter of the way through book 4, and my PCs are 11th level on the cusp of 12. So I imagine my Rise of the Rune Lord's going to end around level 18 unless leveling slows down.
Leveling slows down a little bit, but you're right. Level 18 is where my group ended Rise of the Rune Lords.
In Perseusor says in chat that you can play PFS above 12. This is true. There are sanctioned modules that go all the way up to level 20, and so do the adventure paths. So yeah, he's absolutely right. But I understand Dax being like not proficient, efficient with his wording, and just saying like you basically can go to level 12. The only scenario that goes above level 11 is Eyes of the Ten, and that's a 3-parter, or is it a 4-parter? No, it's a 3-parter that you have to be an 11th level character with 3 credit, or with like basically on the cusp of 12 to start. Like it's one of the most, it's one of the only Pathfinder Society scenarios with a prerequisite for who can play it. And then after that, yeah, you do have to go outside of the standard Pathfinder Society play to get higher than level 12. Now, he doesn't say this, but why do you think Pathfinder Society and a lot of campaigns apparently end around 12th level?
Okay, well, Pathfinder Society specifically, those sessions can only go 4 and 5 hours, and play above level 12. You get maybe 2 or 3 encounters in that time, not the 5 or 6 that a society adventure typically goes. I mean, just combats themselves gets pretty unwieldy, large numbers, lots of abilities, things get kind of crazy, and it's really hard to pre-write those sessions and scenarios at that highest level of play, especially when you have the constraint that this is going to be a convention adventure and you have absolutely no idea who's going to sit down at that table, and it has to work with any random group competitions.
Imperiosaur corrects me. It is a 4-parter. You need exactly 33 XP to start, and the first part gives 2 XP. I've never played Eyes of the Ten. I've been told that anytime I want to, there's a GM who is willing to run it. We don't have highly, unfortunately, because Pathfinder Society, it tends to be progress with one character fairly regularly until about level 9. And then if you don't have someone running the high-level scenarios, or you don't have enough other players to play those higher-level scenarios with you, then start working on another low-level character. And that cycle repeats. So most of my campaigns will go fairly high level. Most of my Pathfinder Society characters will be lucky if they break 5th level.
Yeah, usually that's where most of my players is about level 6 when they go back to level 1. It's like when they get to the point that they can no longer downrank into the adventures that other people are playing, or they don't want to keep downranking a character to play sessions, then they usually roll up a new one. I wish we had a more vibrant PFS community in our area. We don't. I mean, I do what I can, but I can only do so much.
Grey Wolf has a question via chat. Not really a question about Pathfinder, he says. But Param, how many monitors are you using? He keeps seeing you looking up.
3 today. 4 sometimes.
Why 4? What does the 4th one give you that 3 doesn't?
The 4th one doesn't, which is why it's not hooked up right now. But 3 right now. I've got the stream running here. This is handling the stream. I can't mess with it. But hey, I got the stream here, and the camera is over here too. But I'm seeing you here, which is where I'm looking.
Hello.
Hey, this is where I've got the composition running. And up here, I've got the chat and some of the notes we're using, and I have to put some of our displays up here. So when I'm looking up right here, I'm actually usually just reading chat. Yeah, and the 4th one would probably be good to just have chat on, but I'd have to configure that. That'd be weird. And I fluctuate between 2 and 4 monitors depending on my mood that day.
Bard Wannabe says that I need a better VL because I shouldn't be stuck at level 5. Well, Bard Wannabe, I was the VL in Montreal.
Uh-oh.
We don't really have one since, but it was definitely a problem of filling a table, and yeah, consistently filling one table or two tables was always our issue, because we would schedule the higher level games, and then we would either not get enough players, or we would get so many players that it's like, well, we need to split this into two smaller tables. Yeah, we were constantly having this issue of getting between 3 and 12 people showing up for an event, and either, like, I was asking GMs to prepare for something and not being able to tell them what the likelihood that they actually run the events were. It's just a weird number of people that were interested in Pathfinder Society around here, especially because we had enough people to run a con with like 6 tables going at any given time, and then usually the most, like, any given weekend we just don't have that many people. So it's a challenge, and it's an annoying challenge. It's something that I'd rather run itself a little bit more, but you're not, like, as the VL, you are taking on a responsibility. You're not just there for a title and a good time.
Right.
But anyway, it was just too much of a challenge, and that's why I'm not my own VL anymore. And unfortunately, Montreal hasn't really had an active venture officer since then.
And I would like to remind all of our listeners to understand that your experience is not everybody's experience. Some people are very lucky and get regular groups and all the play they want, and a great amount of our audience is constantly writing in saying that they wish they could get regular groups. Some people live in busy areas, some people live in urban areas far away from major cities, and even getting together 4 people to play a Pathfinder Society game once a month would be a miracle. So just understand, lots of people play this game lots of different ways and certain difficulties, especially in an area where he has to deal with 2 different languages and play. It's
yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
Bard Wannabe says, "Oh, I know."
Yeah. So
I suspected as much.
And that goes for almost everything in life. Never assume your experience is everyone's experience.
Unless I missed a question, Param, I believe that's it for no questions.
That's it. So I think it's time we wrap this up.
We will be right back with wrap-ups and shout-outs right after this.
And we're back.
Thank you for joining us for episode 120 of No Direction, the Pathfinder News Reviews and Each Views podcast. Before we go, we'd like to bring your attention, as Pathfinder enthusiasts like us, to some things that have caught our eye recently. I said earlier that all of my shout-outs were about the website and all the work Param's put in, but that's a lie.
Oh!
Dave Gross brought my attention to something. Dave Gross, author of several of the Pathfinder Tales novels we were talking about today.
Mm-hmm.
He brought my attention to the Tor Pathfinder Tales page.
Oh?
So it's not an intuitive URL. It's page.macmillan with an A .com/Tor/Pathfinder Tales. And there are 2 tabs of note, possibly 3. I haven't had a chance to look at the FAQ. One of them is the characters tab.
Whoa.
And it's got little profiles of Radovan, including his last name, Verholt, which, how often does his last name even get brought up?
They've got Roderick and Hrym. Hrym thank goodness they respect Hrym.
Yeah, and all of the characters that have these little profile write-ups have an image, a head-to-toe picture of them, and if you scroll your mouse over it, then it gets highlighted with a spotlight. Mm-hmm. It's a fun little feature. Oh, shadows are accurate and stuff. I'm just going back and forth on Varian Jaguar's picture. Light, dark, light, dark. They've got Miriam Rast from Pool of Stars. I believe that's a Howard Andrew Jones book. But
I haven't read that one yet. I'm sorry.
No, I haven't read it either. I'm trying to remember if I know
book.
her from something else. We've got Torius Vin from the Pirate books and Celeste. I like that Celeste got
and Larsa from Bloodbound, Wes's new book. We interviewed him last month about it. If you want to go back and read that. Mm-hmm. The book got pushed back, which is why it wasn't a simultaneous review, which we like to do. But that was a situation which we couldn't help. Mm-hmm. Expect to be hearing about that book once I get a chance to read it.
Then the other tab that I want people to check out is the Maps tab.
Oh,
it's
Maps.
It's a map we've seen before. It's of the Inner Sea region, so it doesn't even encompass everywhere that all of the Pathfinder Tales novels have gone. Mm-hmm. But it's a big chunk of it, and it's just cool that if you are finding Pathfinder through Pathfinder Tales, then you can check it out and you can find the Inner Sea.
If you click the map, it takes you to the Paizo download page for the community use map.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, that's the Inner Sea. Which I guess they're going to have to expand that to Tian Sha. Why don't they have the Dragon Empires on here?
Because that's a second image. They formatted the page for one image. That's my only guess.
But one of the books takes place over there. Oh, well, I guess it's just one of the books. Oh, the author's page is nice.
Yeah, just overall,
nice
I think
page.
This is a cool feature. We were not expecting this kind of support when they were talking about what Tor can do for Pathfinder. Fun. I like it. Nice surprise.
Yep.
Otherwise, I want to bring attention to NoDirectionPodcast.com, our homepage. Just in case you only listen to us through a podcatcher and haven't gone to the website in a while, the forums are back.
The forums!
We have an events calendar.
We have that,
too.
The
website overall is getting many small but noticeable and important tweaks.
Well, you also have a Twitch widget on the page, which
says we're offline.
Wait, what? It says we're offline right now?
That's what it says.
Our Twitch widget. It fails us.
Exactly.
But we're online right now. You fail us, Twitch widget.
Boy, I hope we're online right now.
Oh, we are. They're talking. I'm watching us. Okay, so I have to fix the Twitch widget, guys. But, I've been working on the page. I can only do so much.
So one thing we got rid of was the tag cloud, which was just a mess of words. It was word
This doesn't mean we don't like tags. You can still use the tags at the bottom of the articles to find related keywords to the articles, and that's still very useful. But the big giant tag cloud was annoying, and then Google released an article that says tag clouds are bad for search engine optimization, which means, hey, I'm getting rid of it now because I don't want to be low ranked on Google.
So all of a sudden, that sidebar is useful.
Yeah, so
we've got the Twitch widget, which hopefully will work by next time we're online. And then, the upcoming events, I think, is going to be an important page for people because we are going to start posting our events ahead of time. Since we usually do know the dates, we may not have a full write-up for all of the events, but right now we know what the next 2 episodes are going to be, and we have a good idea what January is going to be. So I'm going to try and get in the habit of, at the end of every month, set up the dates of the recordings, the live recordings, and the expected release dates of all of the episodes for the following.
Right. And also, the Private Sanctuary guys are also going to be putting in the release dates for their episodes, and we're trying to tighten up our release schedule so that we're not... So sometimes we overlapped each other, and No Direction would come out the same day as a Private Sanctuary, which was bad.
Unfortunately, my work schedule, where I'm going to conventions for Comic Bento and Blind Ferret, means that I'm not always necessarily free on every other Wednesday. So we've had to work around that. American Thanksgiving was last week. We had to work around that.
Yeah,
so
we will continue to have to work around things, and
but at least we will know enough ahead of time that we can let you know,
right?
So that you know when to expect a live recording.
Exactly. And we will fix the Twitch widget, or get rid of it and get a new one, or just make it a Twitch link if we can't fix it. We will do one of those things.
Something will happen.
Oh, I also am adding... Oh, I didn't hit the publish on this. Occasionally, we put stuff on the website. I don't even think Ryan knows about this page I was making for the website. So, surprise for Ryan, occasionally we put stuff on the website that we have developed and are giving away for free on the website, such as the initiative flags and that Goblins book we wrote, or I wrote and people helped with.
The Goblins book?
The Param's Goblins, where we were talking... it's kind of pointless now because Monster Codex exists, but it was created well before we had that episode. But anyway, so I'm trying to gather up all those, things we have actually made that are useful for the players and put them into a resources link on the page, for stuff that is actually created by No Direction Network for No Direction Network.
Then, I'm happy to hear that, because there are a whole bunch of things that were made over the years, a lot of which has just gotten lost.
Yeah. The reason I wanted to do it is I needed to print out new initiative flags, and I didn't have my computer that has those downloaded, and I had a hard time finding them. And I'm like, I made these. I put them on this website for everybody to download, and if I'm having a hard time finding them, so are our listeners. And by the way, search for Initiative Tents. And by the flags, website, it's a free download. They are very handy and useful.
And that concludes another episode of No Direction. Until next time, I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
And if you want to find the path, you need no direction.
Bye, guys.